Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another episode of the strategy series. Today, we're going to be talking about 5 mistakes you're making in set 14 format and how you can fix them. This video is pretty important because I know a lot of you guys are going to be playing in the Carta Magica online event to be trying to get your invite for Nationals. And we saw yesterday that set 15 seems like it's being delayed. Release weekend for set 15 is now actually Nats weekend. So far, they say set 15 is going to be legal for Nats, but I know a lot of people are pushing back on it, so we'll see if that ends up even being the case. But this could even be important for Nationals. So if you're new here, make sure to subscribe, hit that bell so you never miss a video. And if you guys want to help support the channel, many ways to do so down in the description. But guys, if you want even more competitive content, check out the Patreon, read the articles I post there, and you can even inquire about some coaching if you're interested in that. But anyways, we'll get into the video with mistake number 1. So up against yellow, obviously in set 14 format, Icarus is probably the top dog. If anything about the set 15 ban list is to be said about that. But yeah, so yellow is the type of color that pretty much punishes you for doing things and punishes you for not doing things. You're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. They can really take advantage of the way you sequence your turn. So it's very important that you sequence properly. And one of the main ways to do that is, let's just say it's the mid game, you're up against Icarus or some other yellow deck. Let's say you have 3 or 4 open energy and you have your leader swing, maybe even already have an established Unison on the board. How do you proceed with your turn? Well, you can obviously go a few different ways. You can go leader or Unison swing first, but one thing you definitely should probably not do, and again, this is all going to be contextual, but I can promise you most of the time you're not going to want to do this. You're not going to want to commit a non-barrier battle card to the board before you swing with either your leader or Unison, or even just your leader or even just your Unison. The reason for that is 3 of the cards here can interrupt that play really heavily, where you're playing a battle card and getting no value out of attacking with it. Let's just say you start your turn by playing a 3-cost battle card that has no barrier or protection like that, then you attack with leader or Unison, then they can just power of a Super Saiyan, Zamasu, or even Final Flash to negate that card's skills, leaving you in a really vulnerable spot. Likewise though, you also have to consider what most of these yellow decks are playing, and I can promise you for a fact most of these yellow decks are playing 3 to 4 copies of Power of a Super Saiyan and 2 to 3 copies of Vegeta's Final Flash. Zamasu Sacred Disbelief is a bit of a more questionable one. This is more of like a 1 of, or even very rarely 2 of tech, if anything. Like, not every yellow deck is playing this card, but some of them are, and sometimes you do have to respect it. But I guess if you're looking at a situation where you have a Unison and your leader swing available, which one is safer to do? Just numbers wise and statistics wise, probably the Unison swing, because again, more players are playing more copies of Power of a Super Saiyan, which can tap a Unison or battle card, as opposed to Zamasu, which again, maybe 1 or 2 of in a deck you might be up against, where that can tap your leader. So just playing the odds game, you're going to probably want to attack Unison first and then leader. Another card you're going to want to keep in mind that can punish you is Flying Nimbus, and we're doing a lot of talking about, you know, attacking Unison and leader first. If you attack with Unison or leader first, Flying Nimbus can punish you really hard, but that card arguably sees less play than Zamasu Sacred Disbelief, so that's a card you have to respect even less. I would not blame anyone who is attacking with Unison or a leader first and not playing around Nimbus, because that card doesn't see a whole lot of main deck play. Some yellow decks I think are siding it just for the fear of Koitsukai. They need some way to be able to defend themselves when they can't play battle cards during the opponent's turn, so maybe expect it in games 2 and 3. But yeah, these are the main cards you need to be respecting, and that's really the main gimmick of playing against yellow, is knowing what yellow cards are popular in the metagame and how they interrupt your strategy. Again, 9 times out of 10, you're not going to want to commit a battle card to the board before you've gone for your leader and or Unison swing, because they have a way to stop it. Now, let's just say you attack Unison and leader already. Those attacks are exhausted. Now you can play a battle card to the board, and sure, maybe it's met by a Giant Ball, maybe it's met by a Vegeta Prideful Transformation, maybe it's arrested in some way upon entering the battle area, but you really couldn't have done anything against that anyway. And at least the way you operate your turn, you're playing around these very popular yellow cards, and it's unfortunate you got hit by the unexpected yellow, you know, rest mode card. But still, you got to play your turns as efficiently as possible if you want to stand a chance against yellow. That's a really important tip, and I see players doing this way too often, where they're just not really being careful about their sequencing and how they're going up against yellow, mostly yellow Icarus. This next page is pretty much a twofer. The first tip here, tip number 2, is you have to decide if you want to go for Unison, trying to clear your opponent's Unison, or you want to pressure face. Realistically, you have 4 options when it comes to your opponent having a board that has a Unison and maybe some battle cards. So you can go for the battle cards, try to clear those if you don't have skills that can remove them, but pretty much in this format, most decks have skills that remove battle cards, so that's not too much of a factor, but it is an option. Your other 3 options are go for the complete Unison clear, or you can go for as much pressure to the leader as possible, or you can go to their Unison just enough time so they can't resolve the Unison's ultimate, like Baby, for example, their ultimate being a -5. And that is another valid option. You can just go to Baby or go to any Unison that has a crazy ultimate ability, take enough markers off it so they can't hit you with the ultimate the next turn, and then the rest of your attacks can go towards leaders, maybe battle cards, stuff like that. If you're going for that option though, trying to just nullify the opponent's Unison ultimate, you're gonna probably want to take 2 markers off of it that prevent it from getting to that minus number. And the reason for that is, especially if you're playing a Soul Striker or a deck that draws a lot of cards, odds are they have a Unison to put underneath it for the Unison mechanic of granting it another marker. So in that case, if you took Baby down to 4 markers, they can just slip a Unison underneath it and then -5, and now you have to worry about Golden Avenger. Same thing for like the SS3 Vegito Unison against Green Gotenks. If you take it down to 6 markers, odds are they have another copy of the Vegito Unison because they have Gotens and Trunkses in the deck that can search them out. So taking it down to 6 is not going to be enough. You're going to want to take it down to 5, because in that way there's no possibility they can resolve the -7 on you. It might, divert some more of your attacks towards the Unison, but if that's what you have to do to not lose the game on the spot, that's kind of what you have to do, right? And there's this notion that, anytime a Unison takes an attack, that Unison basically served as a blocker, not attacking your opponent's life. And I think that's a fair line of logic to use in some matchups, but not in all matchups, especially against decks that use Unisons for Spirit Boost and kind of rely on it. Any markers you can take off their Unison is going to hinder their game plan pretty greatly. But overall, guys, you want to make sure you're making one of those 3 decisions. Again, you want to go for Unison completely, or you want to put as much pressure to the face as possible, which is going to cost your opponent cards from hand. Maybe you just can't afford to clear the Unison, or you want to get the Unison down to where you cannot get hit by its ultimate. Those are 3 choices you want to go for. Too many times I see players not really have that game plan from the charge step. You really want to have that determined, and maybe the card you draw for a turn can change that. Maybe the card you get from attacking with your leader can change that, but you do want to have a general game plan for how you're going to attack your opponent's board basically by the time you charge, and then play on the fly if your draws really change things that heavily. But the other thing I want to talk about, this specifically tends to the Soul Striker matchup. Really, any deck playing Baby Unknown Parasite, you have to be very, very cautious of that Baby -5 and their ability to play Golden Avenger. We already talked about, how to make sure they can't resolve the -5 on you, but let's say they get to that point where they're able to do it. You need to tread very, very carefully about Golden Avenger. In my opinion, the threat of Golden Avenger is the scariest thing in set 14 format, because they're either counterplaying or countering you, meaning they're just completely halting whatever you're doing, and they're getting Baby on the board, a ginormous triple striker that's also going to remove one of your battle cards, ignoring barrier. So like for me, for example, when I'm playing set 14 Icarus with Violent Rush Bojack, the threat of Golden Avenger is so scary, because at any point I could lose my Bojack and lose my Aegis and not have enough energy to defend myself. Because without Aegis, blue-yellow is a lot clunkier than it seems to be because of how many 10Ks and extra cards you're going to have in your hand. So that's a really, really important thing. So if they get to resolve the -5 on you, yes, their leader is going to be a very big 30K double striker, but you might want to set up blockers. You might want to be able to save your super combos for that scenario so you can defend against the leader attack if you have to. But also keep in mind, if they're coming from a relatively clear board, or maybe even just like one Bojack battle card on the field, Evildoer probably not on a Rampage. On a Rampage is going to put a lot of pressure onto you. But yeah, basically, if they go with Leader Swing for a big 30K double strike and don't have anything else crazy established on their board, maybe you can just afford to take that, maybe go down to 3 or 2 life. And if they don't have much else to pressure you with, that's okay, as long as they're not getting to put their Baby Ape on the field. And that's the scariest part. You don't know if they have the Baby Ape. They might not have it. They might just be threatening the bluff of it, but can you really afford to play into it? Odds are probably not. So blockers can be great there. If you are playing Icarus, for example, and they do go for a leader attack and they have like a Bojack on the field, you can go for a Power of the Super Saiyan, tapping their Bojack, and Baby's not going to be able to interact with that, so that's a really good way to defend it. But in other colors, you're going to want to figure out ways to not have to counterattack, and probably also not put battle cards on the board, because again, Baby can just counterplay anything if you happen to like maybe arrive something or use an activate battle to play something. That can also be scary. You kind of have to like defend in a sense that's skipping your turn almost, but also being efficient in not allowing them to play Golden Avenger. And don't forget, going into the next turn, their leader loses all those power boosts, but they still can play Golden Avenger if you cast anything. So you might just want to swing with your already established board, do as much pressure as you can, and then basically pass to them. Now their Baby Unison effect has worn off, and they can no longer threaten you with Golden Ape for free. So just with all that being said, guys, we'll get to the last two tips real quick. A word from today's video sponsor, Dragon Ballers. Real quick before we get into today's video, just want to share something with you guys that I am very excited about. PPG is going to be hosting the Pro Support TCG weekend in Dallas, Texas, the weekend of November 6th. It's going to be a giant TCG convention weekend hosting all your favorite games, obviously Dragon Ball Super, Digimon, Pokemon, Magic the Gathering, and more. Tournaments for all those. I'm actually going to be there commentating the Dragon Ball Super side of things, the main event on Saturday, the side events on Sunday. I absolutely cannot wait. And if you guys missed out on Gen Con or heard me talk about how much fun that was, you're 110% going to want to be at the Pro Support TCG weekend. The other great thing too is it's just 2 weeks before Nationals, the biggest Dragon Ball Super tournament of the year, so you get some invaluable practice there. But besides that, it's a convention. It's going to be so much fun, especially for those of you guys like me that just absolutely love trading card games. Definitely check it out. The link to sign up will be in the description. I really hope to see you guys there. Now let's get into the video. Alright guys, I do hope to see you at the Pro Support TCG weekend. But anyways, getting back into set 14 format, Zamasu the Eliminator is unerrated. You're going to have to worry about this card negating the play of your Unisons for one more tournament. And that's pretty scary. So obviously if you're playing Soul Striker or any Unison reliant deck, again the example of Green Gotenks, maybe even Red Starter Vegeta, you do have to worry about Zamasu the Eliminator bouncing your Unisons and pretty much ending your turn. Like for the first 4 turns of the game, Zamasu the Eliminator can really just end the turn of any deck that's reliant on an early game Unison. So what do you want to do? You basically want to play cards in your deck that allow you to play around Zamasu. Great Ape Son Goku's Sand Instincts is an incredible turn 2 play that basically nullifies Zamasu because they just can't interact with it. So if you're playing against blue yellow, you attack with your leader, you know for a fact they probably have Zamasu. It's another situation where like they might just be bluffing the Zamasu, but can you afford to just have your turn ended by Zamasu? Odds are probably not. You could go for the route where like you just want them to use every single Zamasu possible so they run out of them. But what's the point in doing that if Zamasu doesn't actually really stop your late game play? Sure, it probably could. The tapping effect is not a counterplay, so that's going to go through deflecting things like that. But if you want to be as efficient as possible and just play your Unison in a later game, Great Ape Goku Sand Instincts is a great way to do that. Demigra Unison as Sorcery is just another example, though, of really cheap cards, whether they're Unisons or even battle cards that just cost 1, that makes Zamasu the Eliminator not nearly as valuable. Because if you're going into a turn 2, let's just say, and you play Demigar Unison as Sorcery and a Green Gotenks, for example, or you even play a 1-drop battle card and they want a Zamasu the Eliminator, well, if they bounce the Unison back to your hand or the 1-drop battle card, you just get to replay it. So that makes the Zamasu very low value for your opponent. That could even apply to Gogeta Xeno, where you get to play your Unison for free off of Kai. Sure, they can respond with Zamasu, but you spent no energy on that, so you're going to be able to use your energy in other ways, which is going to be a big thing to your benefit. So you really want to do things that don't just fall right into the pit that is Zamasu the Eliminator in set 14 format. But anyways, guys, getting on to the last tip. When you're playing against blue, whether that's SS4 Vegeta, whether that's Soul Striker, or maybe even set 10 Zamasu, you have to be very careful of the Galactic Buster engine, because it's such an interruptive engine, and that's obviously not going to be a thing anymore in set 15, where this is errata to Bojack leaders only. But still, you can get a pretty good read on the Galactic Buster engine just by looking at your opponent's energy. You got to make sure that no matter what you're doing, whether you're playing a battle card that has no protection or attacking in a certain order, you want to make sure that you know what Bojacks your opponent has access to in their energy. basically it's always safe to assume they have a Galactic Buster in hand unless they have 2 to 3 copies in their energy already, and even then they could be playing Zeno Super Combo just to pick up Galactic Buster, so that's not even a foolproof thing. So you really want to be aware of the Bojacks they have in their energy. If they don't have Bojack on a Rampage in energy, it's very, very unlikely that they'll combo it from their hand, because that becomes a 5 energy play as opposed to a 4 energy play. So that can be very, very expensive unless your opponent hasn't used any Senzu Beans or Zeno Super combos yet. But Bojack the Evildoer, don't be surprised if your opponent combos it from hand. It does cost 3 energy, 1 to combo it and then 2 to use the auto to play it, but in blue it's almost like a better Raiders Warcry, because yes, it does cost them 1 more, but it comes down and removes a battle card, so it can be very, very good. You want to be aware of that, but the better read is to see what's in their energy and then calculate how much energy they have available. Let's just say they have 1 energy up. You got to count how many beans they've been through, how many dimension magics have they been through, again, how many busters are in their energy, how many Zeno Super combos have they been through. Maybe it's game 2 and 3, then you get a read on if they're even playing Zeno Super combo or not. Maybe they're just playing Vegeta Disciplined Warrior, or maybe they're just playing Zamasu Sacred Disbelief, or some combination of all 3 of those unisons. You need to keep all those types of things in mind. But anyways, that's it for me, guys. If you guys can take all these tips, really digest them and take them to heart, I am very confident you will do well in this tournament in hopes of getting your invite. But anyways, good luck to you guys. Let me know in the comments below what you think about the video, and I'll see you guys next time.